Floating is used for positioning content. When an element is floated, it is removed out of its regular alignment and allows other elements to float up next to it. For example, if we look on this page, we've got two images which are inline, and we've got a paragraph which is block, we've got another image, and then two more paragraphs. In order to make this paragraph go up next to the images, we can go between the style tags and add some CSS. So we'll add the selector for image, so it talks to the images, and then we'll add float to the left. And once we do that, you'll notice all the paragraphs float up next to the pictures because it pulls those pictures out of alignment. Maybe we want to add a float to this image so it goes to the right, and since we already have a style here that's talking to all the images, we'll just go add an inline CSS to this second image. We'll add style, float to the right, and you'll see it pushes that to the right and allows the paragraphs to wrap all the way around it. Now sometimes the float will affect the elements below it that you don't want it to affect. For example, this picture has both paragraphs floated up next to it because there's room. Maybe I don't want this second paragraph to be floated. In that case, I would add something called clear. So on this second paragraph down here, I'm going to go and add a class. We'll call this clear float. It can be named whatever you'd like. And then up here, we'll add some CSS in the style tags, and we'll talk to a class. So we'll put a dot, clear float. So now we're talking to that paragraph specifically, and we're going to clear, and you can clear both for the left and the right, or the left or the right. In this case, we would only need to clear the left, but I typically do both just to make sure. And you'll see that that clears the float off of this paragraph, so it pushes it down below the image. Let's look at one more example with floating. So first, let's get rid of all of the photos in that top paragraph, and we'll leave just those bottom two paragraphs, and we'll get rid of all of the CSS as well. So if we wanted to float these two paragraphs up next to each other, we could go in between the style tags and add P selector to talk to the paragraphs, and we'll add a float to the left, but nothing actually happens. The reason nothing happens is because these elements by default are block, and so they take up 100% of the width. To show that, let's add a background color, and you'll see there's 100% of the width taken. So in order to float up block elements next to each other that take up 100% of the width, you need to also specify a width that is small enough to allow them space to float next to each other. So in this case, we'll add a width of, say, 250 pixels, and now there's actually room for them, so they actually will float up next to each other. And then just add some space, we'll add a margin on the right of 10 pixels. And that is how you float and clear the float.